So can you start with telling me your name, your education and work experience, and what's your position in this company?
So my name is Hilmar Veigar Pétursson. I have a degree in computer science from the University of Iceland, and I'm the CEO of CCP.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about the history of the company? Like when did it start, and like basic facts.
CCP is founded in '97. But the story in Iceland actually starts earlier. There was a company prior to CCP called Oz Interactive, which is founded as early as '92. The mission of that company was to make virtual reality, probably 30 years ahead of its time, and that was an epic ride of a dot-com wave to make that happen. But it didn't pan out due to being 3 decades too early. So out of that we formed CCP with a stronger focus on massively multiplayer games, which were sort of coming to the world in '97. The first game, Ultima Online, comes out in '97, and our first game is basically EVE Online, which is spaceships flying around, shooting each other on the surface, but underneath you will figure out that the world is that the game is really a vibrant virtual world, where it's mostly about the people that play the game, their feelings to each other, their plans for world domination, and the enemies which stand in their ways to achieve it. Okay,
so I want to go back to the beginning of the company. So how many people was there that started the company?
Sort of when I joined the company, which is in 2000, then the company had been operating for 3 years, they actually started by making a board game, sort of a family board game called Hættuspilið, which was released here in Iceland, and did sort of professional service work. When I joined, there were about 16 people here, and we raised money to make EVE Online. So when EVE Online launches in 2003, there are about 40 people. And now in 2011 there are 600.
Okay, and where are they located?
We have offices here in Reykjavik in Iceland. We have one in Akureyri in Iceland. Then we have one in Atlanta in America, and another one in New York. We have one in Newcastle in England, and then Shanghai in China.
All right. So there's a question here that says, do you have funding or revenue? But you already talked about that you raise some money to, but can you talk a little bit about the revenue, income, whatever?
Yeah, the business model of CCP is basically to sell subscriptions and virtual goods in our games. In EVE Online, our first game, we now have 360,000 players, each of which pays $15 a month. So that's basically the revenue stream of the company.
Okay. So now I'm going to go into vision. What is the vision or the interest driving the company? What is the aim of this?
So the core purpose of CCP is to make virtual reality more meaningful than real life. And that might sound strange when you hear it for the first time. But if you analyze a little bit what real life is, then real life isn't terribly interesting. I mean, real life is not having children or making friends or I mean, that is a part of real life. But real life is a lot of boring, mundane things that people like. They buy a house with a currency basket loan, which they have to stay at work to pay off, so they're never at home. When they're at home, they're so tired that they just watch TV, and it's a little hamster wheel of a pretend economy that we claim is real life. But ultimately, it was very poorly designed. It's very unsustainable for the earth, and I think we can do a much better job.
Okay, so you think this virtual world of yours is going to be more sustainable than the real world?
Yes, a virtual world doesn't have any resource footprint. You don't have to kill a forest to make a shoe. In the virtual world, you just flip some atoms and voila, you have a shoe. So the incremental cost for driving the consumption behavior of mankind is much more sustainable in a virtual world than in the real world.
But you still have to plug some computers, right?
Sure, there's a fixed cost to operate the computers, but in my view, that's a fractional cost compared to what we do now with the sort of obsolescence economy, where we buy a set of goods, 6 months they're all in the trash, and the earth is poorer for it.
Okay, I have a question that says, can you name some sources of inspiration, such as person, group, film, game, virtual world program, or other? But I know that the boring, everyday life is obviously inspiring you to create a better world. But can you name me something else? Yeah,
into our game EVE Online, there's a lot of inspiration from prior games, like a very famous game from the 80s called Elite, which was a game about traveling the world in space and buying goods at a low price and selling them at a high price in another place. Also, there are inspirations from films like Blade Runner, Aliens, or Alien. So there's a lot of sort of modern sci-fi pop culture which has influenced the creation that is EVE Online.
The whole style of the thing, basically.
Yes.
Okay, and then I have here a section called 3D Internet World, Virtual World Platform Use, and I am not technical at all, so I don't even know what this means, but which ones are you currently using and why is one here, and what have you tried out in the past? What did you need to know to start? How are you developing the platforms? Is your product or service? Is there any of these questions you can?
Yeah, so we have developed our own platform to operate all our worlds on. It's called Carbon, and something that we've been developing for the past 10 years. So that's basically the foundation technology that we use to drive all the different games which we are making. And the reason why we decided to build our own technology rather than to use something off the shelf is that when we first made EVE Online, nothing really existed that could enable that vision. And through realizing the vision of EVE Online, we basically created way more technology that was more usable than just for that single game. So we decided to build our own sort of proprietary platform rather than to switch over to use some of the shelves middleware and frameworks which are available.
Okay. What does using it in general allow you to do, which you could otherwise not? You basically created your own thing from scratch, so probably have. Do you think you can answer this question better?
Well, because the technology base we use is purposely made to make virtual worlds, there's a lot of tight integration with tools and pipelines for delivering art into the game. There's a lot of scalable server technology which allows you to have multiple characters in the same area or multiple spaceships fighting in the same area. For example, in EVE Online, every player plays on the same server, so all the 360,000 people, they live in the same world, whereas most other games, they have little shards where you live on a particular shard and you cannot meet the people on another shard. But by making our own technology base, we were able to do something which is custom tailored to enable these large worlds at a graphic fidelity which hasn't really been seen before in online games.
Okay. How is the making, creating, doing different with 3D Internet?
Well, I've spent all my career making virtual things, so I have really a poor comparison with what it is different to making it in the real world. It's a little bit like asking a one-handed golfer how it is to play with two hands when he has never tried. So I can't really describe the difference, but I mean, there's obviously a dimension of freedom when you don't have to spend materials to do what you're doing. So that's probably the biggest difference.
Okay, and then next question is they're probably talking about this platform. What does it not allow you to do? Where are the limits?
Yeah. Well, since it's our own platform and we have it's under constant development, then anytime we come to a place where it doesn't enable us to do something, we just change it and make it stronger.
Okay. Are you facing any problems currently with the platform you're using? Or you maybe answer that?
Well, I mean, building your own platform is hard to do, so you need a lot of smart people to join you in doing it. So probably the biggest challenge is locating the smartest people in the world and convincing them to move to another country to join the company.
And there's a lot of people that have moved from abroad to Iceland that have knowledge that didn't exist here, that are
yes.
helping you to do this.
Yeah. Of the 300 people we have here in Iceland, there are about 80 which have moved to Iceland specifically to come and work for CCP.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then I have questions about collaborations, co-creation. Who do you work with and how do you work with them? And I don't know on what scale they're
so on the production side, we have a lot of companies which help us with building 3D assets. Mm-hmm. It's almost like manufacturing physical goods to make the actual model based on a design. So usually the process is we design the items, whether it's clothing articles or spaceships or chairs and tables. We design them on paper, and then we send that over to our sort of outsourcing partners, which build 3D model assets out of them, which we then get back to integrate into our games. Also, we have a lot of cooperation with fashion designers, which help us with inspiration and coming up with sort of current trends and things like that, which we use as a foundation to build the assets we have to the world.
Mm-hmm. How do you find those, collaborators?
I would say we're much stronger for having built these relationships rather than to build everything in-house. Mm-hmm. There's always a fresh take when you work with different companies, mm-hmm. where the collaboration usually achieves something much greater than you could achieve on your own. So I would say a part of our success has been our willingness and ability to work with others to enable our vision.
Okay. Well, there's a question here, like, how do you stay in touch? Who do you turn to for help, inspiration? But you want to add something?
We use video conferencing a lot, but it's also very important to go and visit people when you are in a collaborative relationship. So we do a lot of traveling to meet with our partners and share our vision, get some feedback, and things like that. So even though we built a virtual world, we live in the real world. So we spent a lot of time in planes and hotels.
Okay. Are you active in informal networks related to virtual technologies or other areas?
We are perhaps more active in networks that have to do with computer games than with virtual reality per se. We participate in a lot of conferences, particularly on the gaming side, because computer games are mostly all going online to become some forms of virtual realities. So we're probably more active in the gaming networks than we are in the sort of pure play virtual reality networks.
What is it that makes collaboration successful or not successful?
It's probably the willingness to listen to the counterparty. If you have such a strong and stubborn view that you're not willing to embrace a different input, then the collaboration is pretty pointless. So the key to any collaborative partnership is to be open to changing your mind and come up with something which is usually a much better idea than you had in the first place.
Okay, so question about the future. What particular ideas, dreams do you want to develop further?
Currently we're quite preoccupied by clothing and clothing design, fashion, how you sort of bring the idea of fashion over to the virtual world. I mean, it's obvious that people don't wear clothes anymore because they're cold. They wear it because they bring a certain feeling when you wear them, which you basically see in the eyes of others. People don't wear a particular set of clothes if they're only alone. And how to bring that feeling and how that concept over to virtual reality is something that we're quite preoccupied by right now.
Okay. Tell about how you view the opportunities you are pursuing, and do you see or create these opportunities as an entrepreneur?
CCP is sort of more like an innovation company where we're not really necessarily following trends. We try to stay ahead of the trend and have built a culture where people are sort of intrepid pioneers. They always want to come up with something new. So that has been our strategy rather than, I mean, often companies are fast followers to trends and things like that, but we have tried to stay on the bleeding edge and always take the next step into the unknown.
Okay, if you were to predict a future for new technological tools, what would those tools be, and what would they help you to achieve that you cannot do right now?
I think there's a lot of interesting things happening when it comes to intermixing the real world and the virtual world together, sort of in the same place almost, through the use of mobile technology. So as we have all these new fancy mobile devices with geolocations and proximity detectors and whatnot, then I think there is something interesting going to happen when it comes to sort of pervasive entertainment that sort of intermixes reality and virtual reality seamlessly together. And there's a lot of interesting sort of experiments going on, but I don't think anyone has really nailed it. But I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're gonna see some phenomenal development in that area.
Are there any sorts of problems that you foresee in the future? If so, tell us more about the problems for your product or service and in regard to your use of the 3D platforms.
We tend to not think of the world in terms of problems. We tend to think of it as solutions and opportunity. And I mean, there's so much opportunity out there as technology and consumer behavior sort of continues to trend more and more into sort of a network connected virtual world, and we tend to be quite preoccupied with that rather than thinking of what problems there are in the way. We've usually found solutions to all of them.